to be, but there's an important thing to know about code. If an inspector, and this is by our state requirements, if an inspector invokes code, if he says this thing is not uh, satisfactory according to code, then that inspector owes you and the client the permit from when that property was first, or excuse me, the code that was in effect when that home was originally permitted, and then subsequent copies of codes for any subsequent renovations that were, during that era when work was done. I can't just tell you something's not according to code. I have to prove it. So basically, what the state is saying is we don't want home inspectors talking about code. So I'm going to talk about that thing in context of if it's a defect or a deficiency or a safety item. I'm not going to use the C word because why would I do that and then have to do all that work? If something needs done, now if it's old, it's old. If it's still functional, it's functional. That's not defective just because it might be obsolete, or when it fails, you might not be able to repair it or whatever. That doesn't matter. Is it performing its function on the day that I'm there? That's nice. We need Jeremy or somebody to hit a button.
Maybe
Excuse me
hit
for a minute.
enter, like, just go with enter.
Continue.
Yes.
It was blocking my screen. It's not an inspection for adverse environmental conditions or hazardous substances. Home inspectors are specifically relieved from being required to tell you about mold or about asbestos or about lead. Some inspectors are going to know more, maybe have credentials in those areas. Typically, in any inspector, if he runs across something and he sees it and he knows it, he's going to warn you. He wouldn't be doing his job, even though it's not required. If I see mold, I'm going to report mold. If I see popcorn ceiling in a house from the 70s, I'm going to tell you there's a chance that has asbestos in it. I'm not required to, but why wouldn't I if I know that? So, but we're not required to report on adverse environmental conditions, and it's not technically exhaustive. And what that means, a home inspection is not technically exhaustive. What that means is when the home inspector goes in and we see foundation cracks, for instance, or we see a variety of things that make us suspect a foundation problem. You may see problems that are structural and damaging and see no visible evidence on the foundation itself. In other words, if the foundation perimeter wall is sitting right where it always was, but the interior piers have sunk some, you're going to see that manifest all through the house in drywall cracks or doors that don't fit or that sort of thing. Well, I didn't see anything wrong with that foundation. I'm not going to be able to visibly tell you that those piers have sunk, but I know something's wrong. I'm going to tell you something's wrong and refer you to a structural engineer. That structural engineer then is going to come in and do the technically exhaustive evaluation to determine what's wrong, why it's wrong, and what you need to do about it. They're going to bring in the lasers. They're going to bring in the equipment where they can tell you to the nth degree what's moved and where and how. Is it a soil problem? Was it a construction problem? That sort of thing. That's going to be the technically exhaustive evaluation. Sometimes we're going to see something as simple as we go through a house and we list all the bulbs that are out. We don't know if those are blown bulbs or if those are electrical problems. We're going to tell you, replace the bulbs, and if it's still a problem, call an electrician. That's not technically exhaustive. Another example. Well, seems we have lost our clicker. Well, if somebody can call Jeremy.
The arrow key's not working for you?
No.
Someone went to get him.
Bear with me a minute, people. We're stuck in place here.
Can I ask you a question while we're?
Sure.
So I had my first listing and I had the buyer drive down from out of state,
You can't
show up
advance
at
the
the
slide.
house, and the seller, against my advice, remained there.
Uh-huh.
And so then you had the inspector, the buyer, and the seller present for the inspection. So what I understand so far is at least that buyer's agent should have come with him.
Yes.
And was it a problem for the sellers to remain there?
It's not typically a problem for the inspector. I would say it's a problem,
Yeah.
but not for the inspector. And that reminds me that I should have said in the beginning, anytime somebody in here or online has a question, just speak up. Let's talk about it right then in context of where we are. Now, some inspectors are probably more jittery about that than others. I'm kind of the opinion of, I'm going to do my job. I'm going to focus on doing my job, and then I'm going to talk about it with whoever's there that I should be talking to. If the seller, and I'll give you this example, I've gone to a house before and I knew the agent and the client were coming toward the end for the inspection. I got the distinct impression, not just the impression, it was told outright, the seller had no intention of leaving. So I just called the agent and said, look, just so you know, this is what you're arriving to. And I think he called the other agent and the other agent called the seller, and in 10 minutes, they're leaving the house. So that's what I do, not because it's a problem for me, but because I see a potential problem coming if the buyer and the agent show up, not expecting someone there. And of course, the sellers want to be around. Of course, they want to hear. Of course, they want to know, but that's not in the best interest of the agents and the buyer. So, or unless the parties have already agreed to that, but it's less of a problem for us as far as I'm concerned than it is for the other parties.
This inspector wasn't gonna let the buyer in, but it wasn't, I didn't understand the reason was because the agent wasn't there. That's interesting, because that buyer technically is buying that
The
inspection.
buyer's buying that inspection, but the TMLS lot box rules for home inspectors prohibit the home inspector from allowing the client in without their agent being there. Now, I think some inspectors enforce that a little more rigidly than others, and I think some inspectors are a little more lax with it when the home is vacant. But I think it's primarily to keep people from, well, I guess from a liability standpoint, even if there's no possessions in the house, from a liability standpoint, it's the agent's client. The client, I don't want to say this wrong, but basically the agent possesses the client as far as the control in that transaction. Is that fair to say, Lisa?
Yeah. So the rule is simply that a client is not supposed to be in a house without their agent, period.
Yeah.
It would simply be like you giving the code to the lockbox to your client and not showing up. It's the same thing, so.
Yeah, and it really is unfair to the inspector too, because, it doesn't, I'd say it puts them in a hard spot. It doesn't put us in a hard spot. We're stopping you at the door and saying, here's the rule. Call your agent, let them know you're waiting on them, but if the agent sends the client without intending to come, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I don't know a part of that transaction that's more important for the client than the review of the inspection. The review is so vital because it helps you understand what you're going to see in that report. If the agent's not there, not only, I think, if they not serve the client, they're behind the eight ball, or behind the curve, I should say, on understanding what's going on. Part of your job in that process is to advise that client on what to do next. In order to advise them on what to do next, you have to understand all the information. And the value of the review on site, anytime people don't come to an inspection, it makes our job easier. But if you don't come for a review, it makes your job harder.
And what about the listing agent?
There's no reason for them to be there. I mean, that's up to you guys. Again, I'm not gonna quibble on that topic. We'll get every now and then somebody will say, well, the client wants to follow you around. Okay, no problem. They almost never do more than about 5 minutes, but it's no problem. But The only time it gets to be a problem is if a client shows up, they want to follow us around and they want to talk to us while we're doing our job. Or they want to ask me about something over here when I'm working over here. The first instance of that, I cut them off and stop them. I'm doing this inspection for you, and the more focused I am on what I'm doing, the better inspection you're going to get. So it's never a problem for me. I know a lot of inspectors really don't want anybody around and ask you not to let them be around. I say, come on, you're going to be bored to tears. They never last more than 5 or 10 minutes. I'll have agents say, the client wants to follow you around and he's an engineer. In other words, he's detail oriented about everything and he wants to know and he wants to see. Those guys get bored so fast, following us around and watching us. Someone's dad wanted to go in the crawl space with us. Okay, we'll be back in a few minutes. We're going to go get our stuff on. We come back in coveralls, respirators, headlights, gloves, knee pads, elbow pads, okay, we're ready to go. And he's standing there in street clothes. I knew he wasn't going far, but we're stirring up. You can't believe the nasty stuff we stir up just crawling around under there. And you have no business breathing it, going in there without a respirator on. He came in about 5 feet. He was good. See you later. So those things turn out to really never be a problem.
Well, and if I could add to this, it's our job as agent to explain this to the client before the inspection happens. I always tell my buyers, do not go into the last half hour of the inspection. I'll meet you there. We'll review everything with the inspector because one, they're going to be a distraction to the inspector. Two, you don't want to be sitting there for 4 hours. It's a long and typically boring. I'm guessing you're not bored, Ed, because you're busy working, but the rest of us are sitting there twiddling our thumbs and you got to talk to that buyer for 4 hours. Who wants to do that? So advise them to come for the last half of that review because that review is extremely important. But I think when they hear it from us, when we prepare them, this is what's expected, this is how this process works, then they usually don't have a problem.
And review, meaning you will at that point
We
go over it
go
with
over,
them?
yeah, the review is typically, we'll set up and it's on an iPad or a laptop or something. We're basically doing a slideshow to show you and talk about everything we just saw and did. So that the value of that is, if you don't understand something we're talking about, you can get clarity right there, right then. Then when you see that report, you'll understand everything in that report because anything you wouldn't have understood, you had a chance to clarify while you were on site. So that two-dimensional paper or PDF report makes good sense because you got an opportunity to see it, observe it in the three-dimensional if it was not something you understood.
Sir, quick question.
Yes.
Just to clarify, as a buyer's agent, would I have to be there when you come in?
No, we have lockbox access. That's the beauty of it in the Triangle Market. Home inspectors have lockbox access. The other thing I was going to say, I remembered just then, Lisa mentioned it about talking to them ahead, preparing the client, that sort of thing. I don't know, I can't speak for other home inspectors, but what we do in our system, we've got great technology. Our emails go out when we first book the inspection. And when we can identify the listing agent, which we always can with showing time, and it's a little sketchy online because you can find conflicting information, but we'll pull the listing agent into the order with their email and their phone number, and we'll include them in the email blasts that go out announcing this inspection, this date, this time at this location, and reminding them that we'll need to be, please be sure that all the utilities are on, et cetera, et cetera. So, with the same thing to the buyer's agent, if your client plans to attend, please be sure you're accompanying them. And then the email to the client, if you plan to attend, please ensure your agent's accompanying you, et cetera, et cetera. So when we get to that inspection, if somebody doesn't do the right things, it's not because they didn't know, because if nobody else told them, our emails tell them all that. Then we have reminders. Yes, ma'am.
Is it generally 4 hours for you to do it? I mean, if we're telling
It
them to show up
depends.
30 minutes.
We
are
almost have none for 4 hours. What we'll do is we'll book, when we book them on showing time, we book the full allowed period just because if you tell the listing agent, we're going to be out, we're going to start at 8 o'clock, and we'll be out by 11 o'clock. And we're standing there in the kitchen talking at 11:10 because you had a lot of questions. and the seller circling the cul-de-sac, calling the agent, why aren't they out yet? You know, we book it for the whole time. Typically, we can tell you pretty well up front. You tell us it's this square footage, it's this age, it's a slab, it's a crawl space, it's a basement, whatever, and we can tell you about what it's going to take to do it. But most of ours are more in that 2.5 hour, maybe 3 hours by the time we finish the review kind of time frame.
Okay.
Bigger houses, when we reach a certain threshold on a house, we're sending multiple guys. So even when we get into really big houses, if we can't do that for any reason, it might be one guy, and we'll tell everybody, look, we're going to be there until 2:00. Because I've done those. I've done, 6,000 square foot house with a pool solo, and I'm 2:00 getting done. But I'm telling everybody up front, I'm coming by myself. It's going to take this long. If you want to be there for the review, it's going to be 1:30 and not 10:30 kind of thing. So we make sure everybody knows what they need to know before the day of. What is a home inspector? Should be an unbiased third party. A professional inspector providing a true opinion. He's going to tell you about what's there. Generalist with a wide range of knowledge. You can bring anybody is free to get a home inspection and use every specialist. Bring a roofer, bring an electrician, bring a plumber, bring a structural engineer, bring a door and window guy. You can do that. It costs you probably about $3,000. Take about a month to get it done, but you could do that. Part of that, the guy might do it free but he wouldn't do it free if he knows he's not quoting something. He's just coming to check something. So it would be expensive, but you're free to do that. But a home inspector is a generalist with a wide range of knowledge. He knows enough about each of those systems and has proven that first to the state, and then with his experience and his reputation, he's proven that he can go in that house and do a competent job with all those systems. And we're going to break those systems out here in a minute. Better be a good communicator, because it doesn't matter how good an inspector he is. If you can't communicate that to you verbally and written, he's not going to be a very good inspector. You better have good social skills. That's it doesn't matter how good he is if he's what. And he needs to have the ability to evaluate the systems of the home. And he should be low drama. We talk about drama in context of home inspections because I could tell you something about something and convince you to run away, or I could share the information and educate you and help you understand what it would take to take care of that might not be as big a deal as you think it is. People see the example I use, foundation, crawl space foundation wall. You see a crack here, and the foundation itself is cracked, and then you see the crack coming up the brick to the corner of the window, and then you go around the corner and you see the same thing. That whole corner of the house is slumped. Well, people get scared to death. That's potentially, and $3,000 to $5,000 is not nothing, but that's probably what you're talking about to repair that. You're not talking about a $30,000 catastrophe here. You're probably talking about a 3 or 4, and if there's more around the house, of course that goes up. But if you're just looking at that thing, that might be what it takes to repair it. Radon mitigation systems, high radon in the house. It can be mitigated for about $1,200 to $1,500 in this market. So, I'm not there. I'm there to give the facts, and to the extent of my knowledge, educate the agent and the client about what I'm seeing, and about, to the extent of my knowledge, what they might expect from that. But you get a seasoned agent who's seen so much of this stuff. They probably have already seen that somewhere before and knew exactly what it took to do it. So remember too, I'm available for questions. You guys have I'll share my card. It's on the thing. I'm available for questions, but chances are you've got a seasoned agent at arm's length who's been around the block enough to see most of these things. Somebody in this building has seen it before. So remember that. Here's where it all begins for North Carolina home inspection. The Licensure Act, that includes the statutes, that's the law. The administrative code that takes the law and writes the rules and the standards of practice. The standards of practice set the minimum standards for what a home inspector does, what he inspects, what he reports, what he describes, et cetera. And we're gonna look at that for just a little bit. There's a link to it. I also emailed the copy of the standards of practice to Jeremy this morning, so he can distribute that out to everyone. But I encourage you to read. There you go. I think some of you have a hard copy, good, from where we did it before. I encourage you to read and be familiar with that. I'm going to kind of show you, break down the format that you're going to see in those 10 systems. That act outlines the requirements for licensure. What does it take for a home inspector to get licensed? The requirements for CE, for process for complaints and disciplinary action, requirements for the inspection agreement and for the inspection report. The state dictates certain things that we observe or adhere to in our contracts and in our report. 10 systems. The state broke out for what encompasses a home. Structural components, that's going to be your framing, your foundation, your roof structure, all of those things, most of which you can't see during a home inspection except in the attic or in the crawl space or unfinished basement areas. Exterior, that's going to be the siding, trim, gutters, window and door exteriors, porch, sidewalk, driveway, retaining walls, vegetation with its impact where it might impact the house, as well as the lot slope with respect to how it may impact the structure. Roofing, it's the roof. Plumbing, electrical, heating and air conditioning. Interiors, I walk in here, everything in here is part of the interior, except the lighting's part of the electrical. If I had plumbing, that would be part of the plumbing, but everything else in here is the interiors. Insulation, that says insulation and ventilation. And what that means is those spaces where conditioned surfaces meet unconditioned spaces. Walls, ceilings, floors, insulation and ventilation. When you have a crawl space, it has to be ventilated properly. When you have an attic, it has to be ventilated properly, either naturally or artificially, but you have to ventilate that space. If you have an unconditioned space where it meets a conditioned space. Insulation for two reasons. You're interested in insulation, not only for energy efficiency, but also for condensation and mold growth and that sort of thing. Because if I have a ceiling and no insulation above it, when I've got a warm room and a cold attic, I'm going to get condensation. When I have a hot attic and a cool room, I'm going to get condensation. So it's twofold on the insulation purpose. So each of those systems, I chose the exterior because the system was short enough to fit on one page. But in each of those systems, they broke out the same. The first section says the home inspector shall inspect. And then it lists the things in that system that the home inspector has to inspect. Then it goes on to say the home inspector shall, and it says describe. So out of all of those things that we're required to inspect, we're only required to describe the wall cladding materials. But we've inspected the others. So if any of those other things have a problem, we're going to tell you about it in that defect statement. And then the third section will be the home inspector is not required to inspect. And then a list of things related to that system that a home inspector is not required to do. Backing up a little bit, you'll see in the beginning, either just before or just after the definitions, you'll see a general exclusions. That's where they talk about things like adverse environmental conditions and that sort of thing. There's a long list in the beginning of things that are not part of a home inspection. And then in each of those systems, there'll be specific things that are not part of a home inspection. Storm windows, storm doors, screening, shutters, and awnings, not part of a home inspection. Fencing, not part of a home inspection. Presence of safety glazing in doors and windows, in other words, safety glass. If you've got say a garage door with glass in it, or front door, back door, whatever with glass in it, home inspector is not required to tell you whether that's safety glass or not. We mostly can't tell. Garage door operator remote control. We're gonna operate that garage door in that appropriate section, and there's certain things we're gonna do with it, but the remotes are not part of that requirement. Geological conditions, the soil. Is it, what have you got underground? No, don't care, except to the point where we see some manifestation where it's impacted the home. Expansive clay, you hear about that a lot in this region. That's responsible for a lot of your structural issues. Clay that really expands as it gets wet and really contracts as it dries out. Was in a house a couple of months ago and really didn't see anything again on the foundation. It was crawl space. Didn't see anything on the foundation walls, didn't see anything on the interior piers, but there was widespread, very dramatic cracking and moving, and you see in a corner where if you go in, you see the drywall tape in a corner and you just see the slash wrinkles all the way down. Well, that simply means that the walls have done this and it wrinkled the tape. Widespread throughout that house, and I could not see anything visible with the foundation itself, but the ground looked like an earthquake. There were these deep, wide fissures all the way through that were probably about an inch wide, and I could see 8 or 10 inches down into them, but they kept going, but they curved. It was like this ground was cracking and separating. So, some pretty dramatic soil movement, but I didn't see anything on the foundation, but it manifests itself throughout the whole house. So I can't tell you about geological conditions, but I'm telling you about the impact that had on the house. Recreational facilities, spa, sauna, steam baths, swimming pools, etc. Those things are typically available. I do swimming pools and hot tubs, etc. That's an additional fee with an additional report. I do indoor air quality, I do water analysis, that sort of thing. But those things are outside the home inspection, additional fees for additional costs, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Purpose of home inspection, primarily, find defects, find safety issues. The third thing that I don't think people understand enough is to help the client understand what the systems and components are. When you get that 40-page report that's got a handful of things in it, you don't have 40 pages of problems. You got 40 pages of a lot of good information about what are the systems, what's the plumbing material, what's the HVAC manufacturer, type, and age. What's the water heater manufacturer and age? What are the wiring materials? There's just a lot of good information in there. Siding materials, roofing materials, things that we're describing in there that have nothing to do with anything that's wrong. But obviously you want to know about defects or safety issues. Safety trumps material defect. In our summary, safety is the first section. So if it's an electrical issue, but it's a safety issue, it goes in safety in the summary. You'll find it in the electrical section in the body, but safety trumps, and we want to put that right up front, that this is not, if I come in here and that outlet's not powered, that's an electrical issue. If I come in here and it's like a kitchen counter and it's a GFCI and I plug it in and it won't trip, that's a safety issue. So we differentiate that way. Types of home inspections. This is good information for new agents. There's the one you're going to see most of is down here that you can't see, pre-purchase. But there are other types. Phase inspections on new construction, 4-point inspections, and pre-listing is when we do an inspection for the seller before they go on the market. And then the pre-purchase, you can't see the line item. That's the bulk of the business. The buyer's getting the home inspected before they buy it. Phase inspections on new construction. We do a lot of drywall, pre-drywall inspections on new builds. That's getting to be something that people understand and value more and more. We can go in at that phase and see everything before it gets covered up. Typically, the framing's done. Windows and doors historically have always been in, but that's a problem lately because things take so long to get. The roof is typically on, the siding has not been put on yet, so we can see the wrap and all the tape detail around windows and doors and joints and that sort of thing. Phase inspections. The full phase might be a pre-pour when the site work's done before the contractor's poured. Home inspector's not really the right guy for that. You almost have to have a structural engineer for that. Then a pre-drywall, then the pre-purchase if they want that just before closing. And then another inspection just before the warranty runs out. We call them 11-month. It's before your 12-month warranty runs out. We have some clients that will get a pre-drywall, pre-close, and a warranty. And we have some clients who'll get the pre-drywall, not get one at closing, but get one at the warranty. Of those second two, definitely get one. Many people get both, but I would say a client's rolling the dice not to get at least one. While I'm thinking about clients not getting inspections, in this market, there's going to be a lot of regret some months and years down the road from people cutting corners to win the deal. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm a home inspector, but I'm already seeing it. We had a guy who had a contract on a house. When he called me to schedule the inspection, he said, I just want to find out what all I'm going to need to be concerned about. We had a 1-day due diligence and that's already passed. So we went in and did the inspection. It was a flip basement ranch with a basement, walkout basement in the rear. You go in, it was nice, it was painted, it was really pretty. You open one of the utility closet doors and the mold smell literally knocked you down. In fact, my sinuses would have closed. It was so strong that it was just, you feel bad for them. And then we did the radon and it was like 6.5 on the radon. So they need mitigation. Again, that's not, that's not the budget buster. The other thing is because we don't know how far somebody's going to have to rip stuff out to find and fix what's wrong there. But when they didn't open those utility closet doors, everything else was new and finished and painted. And you know how new paint can cover up something for a while. But when you go into those utility areas, it hits you. And so big surprise by not in this market getting an inspection. And I think a lot of people, from a combination of paying extra money and then finding out what's wrong with the house, there's going to be a lot of regret by bypassing home inspections. I can't do anything about the overpaying.
Is the pre-listing inspection the same as the?
Exactly the same. And the warranty inspection is exactly the same. If I do a house before it closes and I come back before the warranty runs out, I don't even look at that other report. I'm going in and looking at that house as if I've never been there before. It's a very thorough, because what I'm looking for is anything they need the builder to know before, and things could have changed since I was there the year before. So I go in, that's a whole different look. Pre-listing, same as a pre-purchase, same as a warranty.
Do you find that people who do a pre-listing inspection, those sellers, do the buyers usually also order their own?
A lot of times not.
Okay, you can pass that one to them.
But also in this market, I would imagine almost no sellers are
Yeah,
doing
not just
pre-listings.
thinking about this market.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, if a seller in a normal market, if a seller can hand you an inspection report and invoices, because, and here's the thing, and the caveat for listing agents about inspection, pre-listing inspections, as if they didn't already know, I go in and do that inspection and hand you that report. Now that's all disclosure. So proceed with caution when you order a pre-listing. And I don't try to talk people out of giving us money, but understand that once I hand you that report, that's all disclosure. But if that buyer was serious, they seriously wanted to know what was wrong, wanted to get the house ready to go on the market, which is going to be more of a thing when this reverses, if it ever does. It may never, but if it ever did, and it's a buyer's market, then a seller who has that report and that list of invoices where they fix all that, chances are the buyer's going to have the confidence to come in and do a contract, close, and not get an inspection because they appreciate it and trust it. That's individual decisions, but sometimes that is the case.
And what did you say the 4-point was?
Well, I didn't say 4-point is a different thing, and it's outside the scope of North Carolina, of a regulated North Carolina home inspection. 4 points are inspections that are typically done for investment lenders in their format. If your client is buying a house to flip or buying, you know, anything that they're buying other than their primary. There are investment lenders who lend the money to buy the project as well as money to do the rehabilitation. So there's really two. There's a draw request inspections behind that, but up front, the 4 point would be that investment lender wants somebody to go in and tell them roof, HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. And it's almost a drive-by, and they don't want to pay any money for it, but they just want to get an idea if they're paying $250,000 or lending $250,000 on this house, that they've got a house that somebody can at least starts out as a $250,000 house. So they don't want to pay anything, but they want them done. So typically the guys that do them are either brand new to the business or not very good, and they're hungry for business, because anybody who's good in this market would not do what they want done for the prices they want done. So I'm not sure how much they're really worth, but it satisfies the lender. And that's all that buyer wants to do, is satisfy the lender and get their money. So now they got the project funded. So they're going to lend them whatever amount to purchase it, plus whatever amount to renovate it. Well, they're holding back that renovation money. They'll give you the purchase and the first bit of the renovation money, but then they want to see that work is done before they lend the next part. So they'll have somebody come in and do what's called a draw request inspection that, you know, I did some years ago when I was willing to do them for their price. Haven't done any in many years, but that was literally, they would give me a spreadsheet where the client said that the kitchen was 30% done and the bathrooms were 50% done. And, you know, whatever part of the project was, they had a line item and a percentage. And if I walked in and disagreed with their percentage, I walked in, I thought, you know, said, this looks more like 20% to me. I'd put it on the spreadsheet and send it back. And they would not, you know, it would affect how much money they were willing to give them at that time. And I never got any blowback for anything, because I think it was a pretty good judge of what was and wasn't done. But that's what the draw request is then. Before you draw more money, they want to see that you've done what you were supposed to do with that first part. So you're really only going to get into that when you get into something that's not a conventional lending. It's an investment lender. And there's several of them around the country. There was one company out of Florida that was doing a lot in this market. Inspectors are not the arbiter for defect resolution. We should be just given the facts. Now, if I'm standing there and you ask me a question, I'm going to give you a straight answer except for one question. Well, it's a straight answer too. Our job is to provide an unbiased opinion of the condition of the home that day. The resolution really needs to be determined in a discussion and a review of all the facts between the client and the agent. The agent's going to know things and understand things about that transaction that we have no way of knowing. They're going to have some idea of the mindset of the seller. Well, we know what the mindset of the seller is in this market, but we're talking about in normal times. Your agent, the client's agent, is going to know what the other party is thinking, what they've said, what they, you know, if they said, hey, don't even ask for anything, we're not doing anything. Well, you kind of know how to proceed. If they think, well, you know, they've kind of set a threshold, they're not going to go over $20,000 in repairs. The agent's going to know that. We're not going to know that. So the other thing for a home inspector too is to respect that boundary, because a home inspector can dig a hole real fast for an agent that takes an agent a long time to dig out of, if ever. And we got no business doing that. There's nothing that we should be saying or doing that makes your job harder. Well, harder than it should be. I mean, the house might make your job harder, but the home inspector doesn't need to pile on by digging you a hole, by giving the client advice on how they should proceed on something. That's not our realm. And a good home inspector understands the difference. Now, if I get asked a direct question, I'm not going to look to the agent for permission to answer, because I'm already going to know from experience about what I should answer and what I should deflect. Classic question is, I get through the inspection, I get through the review, and Dad or Uncle Joe's there, and would you buy this house? And my answer evolved over the years, but my answer is, it doesn't matter what I would do. I don't have your situation. This might be the best house for you. It has nothing to do with me. I don't know where you work. I don't know where your relatives live. I don't know how much money you've got. Doesn't matter what I would do. So, and that usually puts an end to that. So that's my answer to would you buy this house? Ancillary inspections. A host of different services at additional prices. We'll talk about each of them a little bit. Termite, you all guys all know about that. North Carolina Wood Destroying Insect Report. It's more than just termites. It's any wood destroying insects. Powder post beetles, old house borers, carpenter bees, carpenter ants. You know, any of that evidence there is going to be in their report. Radon tests. We do radon testing on probably, it typically runs about 65% of our inspections we do radon on, and about 70% of our inspections termite, and that runs pretty solid year to year. In the triangle, radon's a whole other class. We should probably do that soon, but there are areas in the triangle that you'd be nuts not to get a radon test. We'll leave it at that for now. HVAC diagnostic, that's where we would bring the HVAC contractor to do a higher scale, a full-blown diagnostic inspection on that system. We have some agents who order it every time. Most agents never order it because the home inspector scope is going to be a visual and a functional. This takes it even further. They're going to put the gauges on and check the refrigerants, because if I go in the house on a 70-degree day, it may cool great, but it might not cool so good on a 95-degree day, but there's no way for me to know that. It's a snapshot of the day I'm there. The guy going in with the gauges could tell you what that thing is going to be able to do. They put an ammeter on all the rotating equipment, make sure it's not pulling excessive amperage, would tell you if it's going bad bearings or anything like that. They're going to look at the coil cleanliness and all that sort of thing, things that are above and beyond the home inspector scope. Swimming pools, I mentioned before, including hot tubs. Detached buildings. I can tell you how I do them. I can't tell you how other inspectors do them. I don't charge for a building just because it's detached. In other words, if I go into a home and there's a detached garage, but there's no attached garage, I'm not charging extra for that if it's just a garage building. Because if it was attached over here, it would be part of the job. And the net difference is one exterior wall, maybe two exterior walls. It takes me 5 minutes. So I don't charge extra for that. But if you've got an attached garage and a detached garage, now is extra work and it's going to be extra money. Then we price them based on, what's the building. If it's just a shell of a building, that's one thing, with doors and maybe a sub panel or whatever. If it's got finished space, maybe there's an apartment upstairs. Well, now you're into more living space. You're into HVAC, you're into plumbing, electrical, probably has its own attic, et cetera. So we're going to charge for those accordingly. But just because it's detached, if it's just a garage and it's detached and there's no attached garage, we don't charge extra. Chimney inspections, similar to the HVAC, a home inspector can see whatever's visible of the chimney outside, and we can see the firebox and the hearth. That's going to be our scope. The chimney guys will come in, and on a wood burning chimney, they're going to do a sweep. But, that's going to be part of the inspection because they can't inspect it until they sweep it. But a sweep and an inspection, they're going to check that flue all the way. They're going to check the firebox and everything, because if they're there, we're not looking at it at all. They're going to check the firebox. They're going to check the full flue. They're going to look at that chimney in the attic, anywhere it's exposed, looking for any problems. We're getting into learning more with HVAC diagnostics and chimney inspections. Those guys are kind of like the cable guys. They want to schedule them in 4 or 5. We'll be there between 8 and 12, or 1, or I think they're 8 and 1 or 12 to 5. Well, that doesn't work for a home inspector. So what we're starting to do with both is schedule. If you want those things, we'll schedule them at 8 o'clock in the morning. Schedule them on a day when that guy, it's his first appointment. He can be there at the set time and go. So there's some things when you get into this extra stuff that gets a little tricky on scheduling. Mold and indoor air quality. What I would tell you about mold is if you can see it, you'd be nuts to pay me to test it. Why do you want to know what kind of mold it is? You want to fix the problem you want to get rid of the mold and you want to fix the problem that created it. But if you go into a room and you can't see anything, but you can definitely smell it, indoor air quality can tell you exactly what's in that air. Lab analysis to tell you exactly what's floating in that air. Now, I can do that, but chances are I'm going to refer you to, they're called industrial hygienists, even though you're talking residential here. Because what they're going to do, I can do that testing and charge you several $100s and tell you what's floating in the air. And that's going to be the extent of how far I can go. They can do all that and engineer a plan for you for correcting it. So I'd say mold and indoor air quality, unless the inspector has the capability of going all the way with it, spend the money with the hygienist and not with the inspector. And I say that even to us, but I can do it. And then well and septic and water analysis. We do a lot of well and septic. We work with agri-waste. I'm sure most of you who've been in business very long know who they are. They cover the whole triangle and they'll go about anywhere, but they'll charge you for it. They do the well and the septic. Now, the way they charge, and the reason I do water analysis in-house is they're in the septic inspection business. They don't want to go out just looking at wells and water. They look at those for a reasonable price when they do the septic. But that $125 well inspection with a water test becomes a $350 one if there's no septic involved. So in those cases, I can go for about that same $120, $150. I can go out and do a water analysis. Doesn't get you a well inspection, but it does tell you what's going on with the water. So that's a capability we offer also.
I have a question.
Yes.
How should we know if we should recommend a termite and radon? I sort of thought radon always we do, but termite, I don't know when we should recommend that.
Radon every time.
Yeah.
I would say because there's nowhere there's no neighborhood that I can point to in the triangle and say you can't find radon there. And I can tell you literally because it depends on what's going on under the piece of ground that house is sitting on. Doesn't matter what's going on in the area. So radon, I'd say every time. Termite, about the only exception would be if twofold. If the seller has a contract with a warranty bond and the lender is satisfied with that, because a lot of times the lender is going to insist that you get one regardless. But if the lender accepts the existing owner's contract and warranty bond, that might get you by.
So from an agent perspective, and
Yeah.
let me address that.
Yeah.
Always recommend it.
The
to cover-
termite.
And let the buyer make the decision. These are the inspections that should go with a house that's this age. I mean, if you've got a house built in 2000, you're not gonna say, oh, you need an aluminum wiring inspection. That's ridiculous. But you've got a house of a certain age, I recommend you get a radon test. I recommend you get a home inspection. I recommend that you get a termite inspection. You got a well and septic, I recommend you get a well and a septic inspection. And let them decide. This is what it's gonna cost you. Do you want this? And always recommend it, because if you don't, and they have a problem, guess the first call they're gonna make is to you saying, why didn't you tell us I should have gotten my well inspected and now my kids are all sick?
Okay, and then what I was understanding too is that when we do these additional inspections, we do need to try to time it when the general inspector is there. That sounds like.
Yeah. Well, the well and septic, first let me say thank you, Lisa, because my answer should have been talk to the agent. Reminding myself about that other slide. My answer to that should have been talk to the agent. So I'm glad you spoke up there.
That's why they have you here.
The well and septic guys can get in and do their thing anytime. They don't have to. All the rest of this is either us or they need to be there at the time we're there. What we're finding though, especially with HVAC and chimney, we don't get a ton of chimney, but we get more and more HVAC all the time, is one of the things I'm having to share with agents when they want that HVAC diagnostic is if I can get that scheduled when we're there, that's my first effort. If I can't, you're going to need to plan to circle back and let them either before the inspection or at a later time. We're going to put it back on the agent to go and let the HVAC guy in.
But that's just a matter of entry, really? Is that why?
Uh,
It's not like you.
Yeah,
include
yeah, it's
their-
just,
okay.
yeah. Agents, appraisers, and inspectors are the only ones who have lot box access.
Well and septic. When we built our house 3 years ago, we met the Wake County standards right in the country outside of Roseville. My son built one 2 years later. It's a different standard on the water now for some chemical. I'm not sure what it is. His was high. I had him come over and test mine. Mine was barely above the new weight requirement. And when they come out and test, are they gonna test at the well for water? Is that a separate test from well and septic that you would recommend to the buyer to do for water?
You're talking about water analysis?
Right.
So if you're getting a VA loan, they're gonna require water analysis, right?
Yeah, VA will require.
So certain types of loans that your
Depending on
buyer may
the
be getting, you may not even have a choice.
And
I would say-
FHA, VA, HUD require the full panel test, not just the
Well, the
bacteria.
follow-up question is the test at the well for testing the water, or is it inside the house at the faucet?
They're inside the house. Well,
Here's why I asked, he put the reverse osmosis and all that on his refrigerator and his sink and all that. That water is all good.
mhm,
The standard flushing water and bath water, whatever that reading was,
mhm.
is okay for that type of water. So my question is, if they come to my house, now with the new code, I'm 150 over whatever that minimum requirement is for that chemical. When I built my house, I wasn't. So if I go to sell a year and a half, which I do plan to do I need to put a system on my house inside the drinking water? Then the guy told me, look, it's a brand new requirement. That 150 over is nothing, but they've just changed the requirement.
One of the things I would say, if someone is gonna do a water treatment system, filtration and treatment,
I have
I would do it,
filtration.
I would recommend doing it at point of entry. That way, everything in the house is downstream of that system. But they're doing the analysis to whatever these water analysis go to a lab, and the lab is doing them to national standards.
Right.
So if the standards change, then yeah. But to your point, if you've got a system protecting it at the drinking water, but they're testing at the well, yeah, they're gonna the results are gonna be from the well.
Gotcha.
But our guys are not testing at the well. They're typically, when we're not there, they'll go to outdoor faucet. I've had like 2 inspections over in the last 4,000 where I had to go let them in the house because they didn't have something outside they could get to. But they're not going to be typically at the drinking water source.
Right.
They're going to be.
Well, our house in Morehead City was on a well and septic, but our outside faucet was not run through the filter system. That was for
Yeah.
water you're doing the
Yeah.
sprinkler system, doing whatever. So if they test it outside, I'm still gonna have better water.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to learn, so if I bring somebody to my house, or like
Yeah.
I'm assuming some
Right.
of my areas will be out in the country outside of Roseville.
Well, and,
Or I'm
yeah,
not, it's gonna be an issue.
yeah, and it's good general information for agents, because if you book AgriWaste with us, and we're always, when they can't be there the day we're there, if they're not coming when we're there, we always go back to the agent and say, here's the day they can be there. Is that okay? If the agent says, okay, well, everybody needs to understand, we're not gonna be there. The house is gonna be locked. So if there's something that somebody needs or wants, like wants them to go to the kitchen faucet and test, well, the agent would need to make an arrangement to be there with them. And so that's something else. It's a very good question and something else for agents to be thinking about.
We have some Raleigh clients who just bought a home in Hope Mills, and they need to get a well and septic test, or they want to. And as far as finding someone who will test wells, would we just like look for home inspectors in general and see if they have that additional service, or
You
how?
can do that if they don't need a home inspection, because if a home inspector is going to do it, you're going to pay more
Right,
than you're going to get going straight. I mean, the convenience of all this through the home inspector is not free.
right.
So if it's not involved with a home inspection, I would always recommend going to the source. What a home inspector can put on this is not much, but there's, if we're involved, if we don't put something on it, we're losing money by spending the time being involved, because sometimes these things can be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But if you're not involved in home inspection, I would recommend going straight to the vendor.
That's where they are getting a home inspector, but he doesn't do wells. So quite often do the same people who do septics also
Yeah.
inspect wells?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll start there searching.
Yeah, most all of them do. Now, if they're strictly a septic company, now the agri-waste is, these guys are soil scientists, they're water scientists, they're septic guys, they do it all. Chances are you can find somebody, where'd you say Hope Mills?
Mills.
That's on the other side of Fayetteville?
Yes.
They would go, but once you get 50 miles past their office, 50 to 75 miles is $100 adder. So they might not be the best choice, but they are a potential option.
Where are
Okay.
they going?
Not sure if that-
They're based in Apex,
Acre waste?
agri-waste,
Okay.
agri-waste, and agra-waste, easy to find. I think we beat that one to death. Oh, there was something else down there.
I think if you touch like the space bar, that bottom thing will go away. Probably.
Nope.
Not the space bar, maybe click on the screen. How do you get that bar to go away, guys?
Usually if the cursor's not close to it, it'll go away, but
Yeah.
it's not close to it.
Okay. Booking the inspection. That's an agent booking an inspection from the coffee shop. Booking an inspection. Info needed, address, what's the square footage, what's the age? Square footage, age, and location are going to determine the price. There's no adder for us inside of 40 miles. But certainly the pricing then is based on what's the size of the home and what's the age of the home. Are the utilities going to be on when we get there? It's new construction is the bane of our existence because agents are notoriously missing in action on those deals, and we show up. They've trusted the builder. The builder didn't. The superintendent said the house would be ready, and then if he found out it wasn't ready, he didn't call anybody, and we show up, and it just is just tough for everybody. So please. On new builds or any house that's got renovation work going on, please be sure that the work is done and the utilities are on, or we get there and can't do it. Is it vacant or occupied? That's not completely vital information, and usually we can tell just by looking at it online, but it's helpful because if our guy is finished early and the house is vacant, he can typically start that inspection early, just get a jump on the day. What's the client contact info? We're gonna need their name, their email address, and their mobile number. And then will the client be attending? Because again, that's helpful information for our guy, because if nobody's coming, if the agent and the client are not coming, and that should say is agent and or client attending. But if we know nobody's coming and we get finished, if he got there early and he finished early and nobody's coming, he can roll away. He won the day. So that's just good information for the guy. In North Carolina, it's not legal for the home inspector to go on the site without a signed agreement. It's not legal. In addition, our insurance company says if you go on that site and something bad happens that's your fault and you didn't have a signed agreement, don't waste your time calling us because you're not covered. So that's a hard stop for us. I know there may be guys who would skirt that a little bit, but that's a hard stop. It's required by North Carolina law. It's also required by the insurance company. We're not going to enter that property without a signed agreement, and we often need the agent's help. We've got initial emails and email reminders. 24 hours out, if that agreement's not already signed, we're sending emails to the agent and the client. And the client's email, each of the emails we send the client has a link to the agreement, and they can e-sign it, for Christ's sake. So why that's so difficult, but it's a hard stop for us if it's not signed. And a lot of times it's the agent that has to push them off the ledge to get it done. Should the realtor attend? Well, that's a short answer. Yes. At least for the review in the end. The client and the agent should attend, but even if the client can't attend, often the agent doesn't come if the client doesn't. But I'd say it's valuable for the agent to be there even without the client. I'm not gonna talk you into coming. I'm not gonna talk you out of coming. There's an advantage for us when nobody comes, but I just think it's so valuable. The information is so valuable. And our lockbox rules, we can't allow the client in without the realtor. The realtor is gonna help the client understand that process. You're gonna help them understand beforehand what to expect. And then you're going to help them understand while we're doing the review. Because a lot of times, if we're talking about something that might, regardless of how low drama we are, it might frankly scare the devil out of the client. The agent can very often say, no, don't, relax. I've seen this. Here's what we'll do. And that just makes the client more confident and enhances their comfort level. And you always want to know the inspector you're working with. Can I get you if I've got a question later? My policy is for our inspectors, we've got 3 other inspectors. My policy is, bottom line, before I qualified, is we can't get back to you fast enough. But what is fast enough? If we did an inspection today and you call us on Friday, that inspector really needs to have that report open to be able to talk to you intelligently about it. Because he probably did 2 inspections today, 2 tomorrow, and he might have 1 under his belt already Friday. He may be 5 houses away from that inspection 2 days later, and he really needs to have that report open. So if he can, we can open them on our phones. I've got no business talking to you about that report without being able to see the report, because anything I'm saying at that point is guesswork. So fast, but we need to be able to talk intelligently about it. Yeah, there again. Oh, can aid with issues with the seller.
I asked Jeremy, by the way, about that. He might come in and try to help you.
That last bullet is the buyer's agent can aid with issues with the seller, which is kind of where we open with a question about sellers being there. If the buyer showed up without you, it could end up being, there's a reason agents keep the buyers and sellers separate. So if you send a buyer to a seller's house, you've given up control of the situation.
I don't think my agent knew that, the one I was dealing with. And she thought that they were allowed in despite the sellers being home, but I think they were allowed in only because the sellers were home and gave permission. The inspector wasn't gonna let them in.
Okay, yeah.
Now
yeah.
I'm understanding that.
Yeah. If somebody else lets the client in, it's not on us. But we've got to protect our interest also. But that's the big picture. Any additional questions? If there's an interest with new agents, Lisa and Jeremy, you guys can talk about this. We did a walkthrough a couple of 3 months ago with a group here, and I think we had about 15 people. And I've gotten really good feedback on that, where the listing agent had a house and the seller agreed, okay, yeah, you can bring a group through. So if it's ever anything like that you guys want to do, or if you've got questions, or, I don't know what's next on the agenda, but I'm available for questions. I've got a little time, but, or just come in sometime. I did a thing at Keller Williams Legacy a couple of years ago, where they were through construction, and they were all in upheaval. And we didn't have an agenda. I just sat on the corner of the table. It was a small group, about 5 or 6 people. So what do you guys want to talk about? And about an hour and a half later, we had exhausted the questions, because it was just open forum. Any question they had about homes and home inspections, we talked about it all day. But that's it. Any other questions you got today?
It's been really informative. Thanks for letting us ask
Thank you,
along the
guys.
way.
Thank you very much.
Well, and I think you might not know what's next, but I am. I'm next.
Negotiations. right?
Negotiation.
There's my contact info. Let me get this.
Should we just write that down? Let's see.
Y'all want a break?
You have his
We've
card?
been sitting here for an hour. Does anybody need a break or get something to drink or bathroom or anything like that?
I'll get Jeremy. I don't want to just pull that stick out without.
Oh, I don't do that stuff.
Ed, do you have another card?
Yeah, that's right, John. I think you were.
Thank you so much. And I hope you will do another one of those walkthroughs. I'd certainly like to.
Yeah, and also for you guys, I should have mentioned before, I've got a class on HVAC systems for that's specifically designed to inform realtors, and the class on radon. Each of those are about an hour. I think we went over a little bit today, but we had good questions.
Okay.
So it just means I don't have to talk for the whole hour.
Glad I could help.
You're always so helpful.
All right, I'll get Jeremy and get that stick out, and I'm done.
Okay,
We'll see you later.
all right, good to see you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Call me if you need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lisa, what was your last name?
Jackson,
Okay.
Lisa Jackson.
Yeah, good. So, yeah, I did the HVAC for you guys. What was it I did for 220?
What did you do for us?
Was it HVAC or radon I did?
I don't think it was radon.
Must have been the HVAC.
It must have
Yeah,
been.
Yeah,
Must
we
have
did
been.
that class. We'll see
Yeah.
you soon.
Okay, yeah. I'll be around.
That was last month, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was last month.
Yeah.
Thank
See you later.
Wait for everybody to get back. I told them, been sitting there for an hour. They probably wanted to get up and move around a little bit.
Walked around a little.
We're not too good at sitting still.
You don't happen to know of anybody who does well inspections over in Cumberland County area, do you?
You know, I don't do any business
Okay.
over there. Did Ed say you wouldn't go that far? Did you ask Ed if he would go that far? Yeah, I don't know if he would go to Cumberland County or not. Oh, there he is. Ed, do you go to Cumberland County?
No. Well,
What's your
let me say it this way.
Bottom. I was trying to
No,
tell
but there's nowhere we wouldn't go, but it would tie us up for a full day and cost more.
And Costello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't know anybody in that area.
No, I don't either. In fact, when I was in Keller Williams, Durham one day, it was a couple of years ago, they had some guys from Keller Williams, Fayetteville. There, I sponsored something that they were presenting. And when I told about our company, the guy came up to me while we were eating lunch. Man, would you come to Fayetteville? We need, I was telling all this, we need this down there. So maybe I should.
Start a new
Find somebody that
branch.
lives down there.
You can
Yeah.
get a branch down there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
So I know we want to get out of here on time. So just a little bit, I am Lisa Jackson. I am with the 220 Agents team. I got my license back in 1986. I did not ride a dinosaur there to take the test, but it was back in the day when contracts were 2 pages. We carried around MLS books. Nothing was online, and it was a buyer beware market. Advanced 35, 36 years, entirely different market. So discussing negotiating repairs now, it's very different than it was then. Very different than it was this time last year, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. Right now, negotiating repairs are pretty much non-existent. Because as Ed mentioned, we're all writing offers on houses with $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in due diligence, no due diligence period. And the sellers are not willing to negotiate on anything at that point because, as you all know, contracts are as is contracts. You don't even have to write that in there. It says automatically, you're buying this house in the condition that it's currently in. But there was a time when sellers were so anxious to get their house sold that they were willing to do just about anything. Those times are past. So negotiating repairs, I can make this very short. Don't expect it to happen right now. There are certain things though that I do think that are important for us to know. So one, of course, was if you're representing a buyer, and now that COVID is kind of sort of behind us and we can attend inspections again, I do recommend going again just for the last half hour, showing up with your client, bringing them in that, for that review. The inspection report, you've all seen an inspection report? Yeah, 40 pages, 50 pages, 60 pages. It's a lot, especially if you have a first-time home buyer. They get freaked out. House is falling down. No, it was just built. No, it's falling down. Look, the thing is huge. You know, so it's really good to go hear what the inspector has to say about it, and let your clients hear it. And if you have a low drama inspector who's not pretending like the house is falling down because a light bulb is out, then you're in a much better position. So what you want to do is you want to take a look at that inspection report when you get it, and review it with your buyer. Go over it and look at the things that are broken out, safety things. You know, is there a problem with the electrical? You know, is it a big problem? You'll see under that safety sometimes things that are not really that big a deal. Anti-tip on your stove. Nobody has that anti-tip on their stove. I don't even know if that thing really exists when it's brand new, but that's a safety concern, because if a toddler tries to climb the stove and it tips over, it could hurt them. That's really not a big safety concern there. But there are certain things that are safety concerns. You're always going to see showing up: gas meter bonding, right? Gas meter is not bonded so that if lightning strikes the house is going to burn down. How many times have y'all heard that happening? Not really, but it's going to be on every inspection report you get back, right? Because it's current code. So those are some things that are really important for you to know, so you can advise your client on, is this something we really should be concerned about, or is this really not that big of a deal, right?
Lisa, how do you do that without creating a liability that you don't want to create? Because I do know a house that was struck by lightning and burned down, you know, and so.
But was it because of the gas meter bonding?
No,
No.
I don't know.
Most likely
I just
not.
don't know about
No,
it.
lightning, yeah, I do know somebody that happened to too, but it wasn't because of the gas meter bonding. Lightning struck a tree that fell on the house, the tree was burning and it burned the house down.
I'd just be so hesitant
Yeah.
to say, since I don't know about it, like, don't worry about this.
No, and I don't think that you should ever tell your client, don't worry about it. I actually heard a closing broker tell a client that one time there was uneven sidewalk. It was under safety concern because it was a tripping hazard. Well, you can trip over, you know, and I heard this closing broker say, oh, don't worry about that, that's nothing. And she said, you know what, it is something to me. So don't ever tell them it's nothing, but you can explain to them gas meter bonding is a relatively new code item. It shows up on all inspection reports. This is what it entails, and it costs about $150 to get it done. So you give information, right? And if they, then let them make the decision, because liability is huge for us. But so long as you know what it is. What is the anti-tip on the stove? Most people don't know. Well, that's that little leg that holds it up to keep it from falling on you if you pull on it. Oh, is that what that is? You'd be surprised how many people don't know what a GFCI is. What does it do? You know, should I? Yeah, well, I probably wouldn't know if I didn't do this either, but yeah, it trips when it gets wet so that you don't get electrocuted. You have them in your bathrooms and you have them in your kitchen. Some older homes don't have them yet. So, you know, is that important? It probably is important, but you don't want to say, oh, this is important. You just want to say, this is what this does. Let your client make the decision about whether that's important or not. You know, but you do need to know how to explain each of those things. That's why it's really important to read the inspection report, because actually the inspection report, like Ed said, has a lot of information in there, and it'll tell you a lot of this stuff. So even if you haven't had experience with it yet, the inspection report can give you a lot of that information.
So I think we should look at one together.
Well, and I do recommend that. I do that for our team. People come in and, hey, can we go over this and see, you know, and look at it and see what, you know, things are really relevant. But because it's broken up under safety concerns, defective, it does help you to say, you know, what's important. A lot of times the buyer will say, well, let's ask just for the things that are safety concerns, you know, or You know, sometimes it'll have in there, roof is at the end of its life. All right, so we're gonna ask for a new roof, right? All right, is it leaking? Well, no, it's not leaking, but it's a 30-year-old roof. They're gonna tell you that, you know, and your buyer needs to know, well, I'm probably gonna have to replace that roof, but you're gonna go to the seller and say, we want a new roof. And the seller's gonna say, it's functioning as it's intended. It's not leaking. Why would I give you a new roof? You know, so there's a lot of things that show up in that inspection report that you have to consider, and you have to say to your client, well, let's go ahead and budget for that new roof, but the seller's not gonna pay for it because it's not leaking. Now, if it's leaking, that's a whole nother matter. You know, but do take the time, read it, go over it with your client, with your buyer client, and say, all right, here, everything that the inspector found. Are there things in here that you need to be concerned about? You know, do you have high radon levels? You know, well, what is radon? You know, here's what radon is. Here's how it could be mitigated. And here's about what it's going to cost. Now, I can sort of look at an inspection report and tell you just about what everything's going to cost to get it fixed, because I've been doing this for so long, but most people can't. So it's really important if you've got a contractor that you can send your inspection report to, or at least the items that your buyer is wanting to have repaired. There is a company that's called Punch List. It's online. You can send the inspection report to them. They do charge, but they'll give you an estimate for everything on there, so that at least you have an idea of what amount of money you're talking with. Are we talking about fix everything on here is $2,000? Typical repair request is $2,500, just statistic there. Or are we talking about this is going to be, you know, $25,000 worth to get all of this stuff fixed?
You're saying 2,500 is the average of what people will request that?
No, that's the average of what most repairs
items
cost on an inspection report. I don't know if that's a helpful statistic or not, but a lot of times it gives clients peace of mind, just to know that. You know, obviously you've got some houses that are in terrible shape, and some that, well, no house is perfect. You know, the buyer is paying the inspector $450 to go through and inspect the house. He's going to find something wrong with it, I can tell you that. You know, so, you know, having someone that you can go to and say, you know, do you have an idea about how much these things are going to cost to repair, is a good thing. So that they'll know coming up, we move in the house, this is about what we're going to need to invest to bring it to where we're comfortable living in it. Back in the day when we did make repair requests and we had repair negotiations, it was an important number to have, because you could ask the seller for money in lieu of repairs. That is always my recommendation. Instead of having the seller make the repairs and do them the way they want them done and probably on the cheap, I like to ask the seller to give us either credit or take something off the purchase price of the house that's equivalent to what that repair estimate is. That way your buyer can hire their own contractor, have the warranties that their own contractor, you know, provides. It makes it for a much smoother transaction than seller agrees, seller gets the repairs made, buyers have a re-inspection, or on the walkthrough, they come through and they said, well, they said they were going to fix this. Well, they provided a receipt, they fixed it. Well, that's not how I wanted it fixed. Now you're in a real quandary, right? So if you are negotiating and you have the option of asking for money in lieu of repairs, sometimes your buyer is going to say, no, I want it fixed. You know, single mom, and I don't know how to use a screwdriver. I want it all fixed before I move in. So sometimes your client doesn't want to take that, but it is, in my opinion, the very best option when you're negotiating repairs to do that. Also, if you're the listing agent, I think it's the very best option. So if I have a buyer's agent call me on one of my listings and say, we want X, Y, and Z fixed, I always say, is your buyer open to money in lieu of the repairs? Because it alleviates a lot of pressure from the seller. One of the sellers busy packing and trying to move to their new house. Do they have time to reach out to contractors and get them in? Two, are they gonna fix it the way that the buyer wants it fixed? Then usually the seller is gonna say, well, I'm real handy. I'm gonna go under there and scrub the mold off with some Clorox. They'll never know it. You know, and that's not what the buyer wants. The buyer wanted mold remediation, you know, so money in lieu of repairs is, I think, always the best way to go if you're gonna even get any repairs done at all. Let's see, what else did I have?
So, question for you. I probably will have the buyers coming back to us today on a listing that I have. They just got their report done, as I mentioned, and he's from out of state, and they might want some things done. I'm not sure. I know that in this market, we're not getting a lot of those requests, but what is the right way to respond as the listing agent if they were to ask for some repairs?
So that's a really good question. It depends on what they're wanting done, and it depends on your client, your seller's willingness to do anything. I do have sellers that say, oh, we love this house and we want our buyer to love the house, and we want to do everything and make it wonderful. I love those people. They're rare.
So your first response is, let me take this to the sellers?
Yes,
Okay.
always, always. That's your job, is to present it. So you go to your seller and you say, hey, the buyer has requested this. Now, be careful when you send the inspection report to your seller client. All right, prepare them. I'm going to send you over the inspection report.
And it will be given to us to send over, most likely? if
So
they're
on
requested?
the DDRA, the due diligence repair agreement, there's a little box that checks that says buyer agrees to share inspection report. So how are you going to know how to fix it if you haven't
So
seen
if they're
what's
asking
wrong
for
with it?
something, they're gonna give it to you. Okay.
So most of the time, the buyer's agent is willing to share the inspection report, much more than they're willing to share the appraisal. But they'll share the inspection report. Sometimes they only send you the summary. The inspection report does have a wonderful summary that usually comes with pictures, and then you have the whole body of the inspection report, which a lot of the body of it is simply disclaimers. The inspector saying, you know, we did this, but we can't do that. We did this, but we can't do that. You know, it's CYA for them. So the summary is a good thing. So a lot of times buyer's agents will just send you the summary along with what they're wanting. So yeah, you need to take that to your seller and say, the buyers are asking you to fix these things, you know, and then you explain to the seller, now the contract as written is an as-is contract, meaning that when they wrote the contract, they were agreeing to purchase your house in the condition that it's in. However, because we're in the due diligence period, if you are still in the due diligence period, the buyer can change their mind. And they may terminate this contract, you know, so depending on how much due diligence money you have and the repairs that are being asked for, you may want to make some of those repairs. Because if the buyer does terminate, those items that were found in that inspection report could become material fact. So anything that's on the residential property disclosure, is there a problem with the roof? Well, they didn't think there was. I've never been up on my roof. I don't know if there's any problem. But all of a sudden they got an inspection report that says you got nail pops and you've got broken shingles and the seals around the boots are not right. Now all of a sudden your seller client knows this because it's in the inspection report they just read. And, well, I'm not going to fix any of that. That's fine. But if this buyer terminates, you're going to either have to fix those things anyway, or you're going to have to disclose them because they're material fact. And then they're going to be so smart and they're going to say, well, it's not my first rodeo. I'm going to put no representation. That's fine. You can do that. But as your agent, because I now know about it, I'm required to disclose it. So that's where the seller has to decide. I've got $20,000 worth of their due diligence money, and these repairs amount to $2,000. Is this buyer really going to terminate over $2,000 repair request when I've already got $20,000 worth of their money in my pocket? Probably not. So they're probably not going to do a whole lot of things, but it's your job as their agent and their representative to explain to them the consequences if they don't. Now, you may only have $2,000 in due diligence money, and the repairs being requested may be $15,000. So then that changes the negotiation entirely there, because that buyer is liable to say bye-bye to their $2,000 if you're not willing to fix that $15,000 worth of stuff that's wrong with the house. And there are things that are major things that do need to be taken care of. Radon, a high level of radon. Radon mitigation is actually a really good thing to have. Sometimes you have buyers come to the house and, oh my gosh, what is this big thing here? Well, it's a radon mitigation system. It looks like a big fan in case you haven't seen it. Oh my gosh, they've got radon in the house. This is terrible. We're all going to die. No, it's much better to have the radon mitigation system because it's constantly removing any radon gas that's in the house. So it's a good thing. When you've got problems with your water, that's a big issue. And you brought that up earlier. So when an inspector comes through, they're going to bring up things that are current code, right? So you've got a house that was built in the 1960s. And in the 1960s, it wasn't code that you had to have handrails from your front porch. That is code now. It wasn't code that the slats in the handrails were only 6 inches apart. Back then they could be 10 inches apart. And they're going to say, this is a safety concern because it's current code. They're not going to go off what was code back in 1960. But that's an important thing for you when you're negotiating on behalf of your client or advising your client to say, look, this house was built in 1960. It's not going to be brought up to 2021 code. We can't do that. We can't get in the walls and make the wiring up to code like it's 2021. You knew when you bought the house that it was built in 1960, right? So there's things like that to remember. Water is a different matter, so they come through and they say, you have high level of this. Well, when we put it in, that was code. It was okay. It's sort of like radon. That tends to be a bit more of a health concern than the front porch doesn't have handrails. So different things like that can matter. Of course, the things that really matter are what matter to your client. What your buyer's concerned about. I don't know that I had any other notes that I made real fast, that the things that might be interesting. Do y'all have any questions about anything that y'all are in the middle of doing?
I have a question.
Yes, Marquise.
So say, for example, if you have a house and you have it in a conditional stage, right? Is it any way, or I'm trying to figure out, is it a better way as far as telling people that the sellers are deserve to pretty much accept any offer at any point in time, but they want to wait until the house hits the market? So like, like, for example, from the agent remarks in MLS, could I go in there and type something up as far as mentioning, because this house is coming soon and it's coming soon for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
You have offers on these properties that might be coming from investment groups, individuals, and things like that. But nothing is knocking the socks off of the clients. So like, instead of just going back and forth or countering every offer that comes in, pretty much still allowing them to have that time to wait for the home to actually go active. I really is just saying, how can I voice that message across the board?
Well, you could put in the agent remarks, accepting offers during the coming soon phase. The seller will not be making a decision until, and you could actually put the date in there. I'm assuming if you're already getting offers on, it's gonna be a pretty popular property and you're probably only gonna be on the market 3 days or something after going active, something like that. So you can actually put a cutoff date in there if you want to. But as you know, when the offers come in, whether you make that disclosure or not, you're still required to inform your client that you've received the offer.
Definitely.
And I would probably, as the offers come in, I would say, received, I'll present it to the seller. Just so you know, the seller is gonna wait until July 5th to make a decision.
Okay. That's sure.
I have a pretty detailed question. I was thinking about just saving it to ask you after to not tie everyone up, because I just had something come through with this negotiation we're dealing with. I definitely need some advice.
Go for it.
I don't know if everyone wants to hear all the details.
You might learn something.
Because
from
it's
this.
pretty nuanced. Okay, so, and I'm trying to pull up the language just to give the full picture, but the house that I have listed that's under contract now, the sellers were very surprised to find out that it only has a permit for a septic for 3 bedrooms, even though there's 5 appearing bedrooms in the house. So they immediately started to do whatever they could with the county to get it to go to 4 bedrooms. They're committed to upgrading it and paying whatever is needed to be done. So I contacted the MLS, the Triangle MLS, and found out that we could go ahead and list it as a 4 bedroom, because as we all know, 4 bedroom will have different comps and value than a 3 bedroom, and they want the 4 bedroom value. And so we could do that as long as by closing, it would be upgraded to a 4 bedroom. So with their assurance to me that they talked to all the necessary people and they were really assured that could be done, we listed it, we got offers in, and then they came back to me and said, the guy from the county's come out and it doesn't look as clear cut as we thought. So I took it back down to a 3 bedroom on the MLS and put in the agent remarks, we were in process with having it upgraded to a 4 bedroom. Just didn't want there to be get in trouble for that in case it couldn't be done. So now what we're under contract for is that home, as I just mentioned, but the information that's come through as of late, and I can't believe we only got this week after we've been dealing with this for almost 2 months, like what is going to be the process for septic. We've been actively trying to get it done. Duke Energy came back to us saying that there's like a month-long application that will need to happen, which at the end of it might or might not be granted. It's an encroachment is what they're calling it, because the repair field would have to go under their energy lines. And so my sellers are committed to going through this process and making this happen, but the buyers and the sellers don't want to push out the timeline that long. Right now we're set to close the end of this month. So I've just gotten, so what I know that these buyers really want this house. They're moving down from New Jersey. They gave a really good offer on it. And so I just wanted, like I said, he showed up at the inspection yesterday and it doesn't look like they're asking for anything to be done in terms of repairs. But on their offer to purchase, they had an addendum, and I was going to pull it up so I could say exactly, I think it's just an addendum, which said our offer is, it's not a contingency, but it was an addendum that said our offer is basically contingent on that this upgrade is done. So we did sign that. And so now what they're proposing, and I don't think, I want to negotiate this a little, it doesn't sound like the best thing for my sellers to go this far, is they would like to go ahead and ask for $5,000 to be given to them. Since the septic changes cannot be accomplished as stated in the contract prior to closing, as previously guaranteed, the excavation and work is going to occur when we have possession of the property. This delay puts a burden on us, such as dealing with the contractor, any inspections, any disruptions, while still in New Jersey. We are requesting the seller credits us $5,000 for the inconvenience for not meeting the contract obligations. It sounds like that credit is in addition to, we want them to keep doing it. And there's a second stipulation. We would like to hold a $15,000 escrow to be returned to the seller once the septic changes and all permits have been completed, inspected, and approved. Separate from the escrow, if there are any additional costs for septic or fees after closing, the seller is responsible for paying those Originally, the 4th bedroom septic addition was guaranteed. So in the contract, as we signed it, I guess they can say that. The escrow will be returned pending the outcome.
Mhm. Yeah, so.
And my understanding of what I think that septic work will cost, the big question is, can it be done, is about $2,000. And so my sellers are willing to do that. So first of all, it's not clear to me from point one, if they're saying you go ahead and take care of that and give us 5,000 for the inconvenience, or if you're saying 5,000 and we'll take care of it.
It sounds to me from what you read, they want 5,000 and they'll take care of it.
Okay, that would be, that's possible.
That
That's
again, I
not
would
unreasonable.
talk with the agent and clarify that. Just
Okay.
want to make sure I'm reading this right. You're saying if we give you $5,000,
Then if it's able to be done, you'll do it.
you'll take care of it.
And then I think the 15 is if it's not able to be done. I think they're saying we'd like 15 back,
Credit because
which I was initially thinking if they asked for anything in that, I would offer 10.
Well, obviously it's a negotiation, you
Mhm.
know, so that I agree with you. I think that's what they are saying. If after all of this, but they'll have that 10 and the 5 too, or the 15 and the 5. So
That's right.
they'll already have the 5,000 for the inconvenience
Yeah.
of it.
It's just a question for me, how much you can push, because it's
How
not
much due diligence money do you have?
10,000, but that's a question I had. Is that due diligence part of the contingency? I mean, I sort of would think it would be. 'Cause
Yeah, and they could potentially ask for it back
I think so.
along with the earnest money and any monies that they've spent on inspections.
Oh, can ask for that?
They can ask, you don't have to give, and then you end up in court. So if they do ask, I'd probably give it back because you're not delivering the goods that you promised.
I didn't know that about inspection. So during the due diligence period, if they decided they do want to pull out, your seller could be liable for paying the inspection fee?
If they have committed some type of fraud. And our Vic is here, she can.
Absolutely. I kept listening to Julianne upstairs and I was like, let me come back here and rescue her.
Did you hear it? Did you know from the beginning how this has been?
Yeah, well, you can, because you can ask for anything back if you feel like the seller has breached the contract. It's up in the air.
From what I presented, do you think that I gotta look up the language of it. Would they breach the contract if they can't deliver a 4-bedroom home?
What you think?
I think so. If that's written in the addendum that we are willing to purchase this, with even if they're willing to do everything they can, only it's not able to be done because of the county or because of Duke Energy, still they can't deliver a 4-bedroom, so then that's in breach and they would be liable for the inspection too.
Right.
Okay.
That's why we were kind of holding off on that to wait for that information to come in, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I have to say, I don't know who you talked to at MLS.
The president, you referred me to the vice president.
So initially, if that were my listing and I was going through that, I'd probably been okay with saying 4 bedrooms, but I would have made in the public remarks, we are in the process.
Oh, I did.
Okay.
I did.
All right. I
Absolutely.
didn't get that part. Yeah,
I didn't mention that, but I did in the agent remarks.
Yeah,
I've
you
been
got it.
upfront about it the whole way. And I did advise the clients absolutely to wait. This is 2 months down the road and they pushed me, is there any way? So I wrote in MLS to see, is there any way?
So the thing is, you've got to just inform your clients and let them make the decision. Again, we don't make the decisions for them. We say, here are your options. You can do, they're asking for 5,000 and do this, and they're asking for 15,000 and doing that. So you can do that, or I can try to negotiate a lesser amount or a different amount. Or you can say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. And then be liable to return, if they ask, return their, and I'm guessing they will, return their due diligence, no earnest money, you said.
Okay.
And potentially you could be on the hook for their inspections and so forth. I mean, hopefully they're not litigious people and wouldn't take it to court and ask for pain and suffering and all that sort of stuff. But that is a possibility too.
Okay. It's
So
good to know
just
exactly what I need to present to the clients.
tell them, here are all the things that can occur because of this. What do you want to do?
I have a question on that. What does it change the house value from a 3-bedroom to 4-bedroom would be important to me if I was a buyer.
Absolutely.
You know, is it a $20,000 difference by going, even square footage, they could be multi-purpose rooms, but if I don't get that bedroom agreement, what did the value of the home actually change to me as a buyer?
Well, and that's, been a really interesting question in this whole process, because of course, that's why the 4-bedroom was important. That's why it's even an issue on the table, right? But to tell you the truth, with this market being the way it is, what these people offered for it, whether it's 4-bedroom or not, is way out of the park for what comps would support.
Okay.
So that just makes me wonder where they're pulling, and their agent's not one who's saying, where's your comps, like another agent was. So that just makes me wonder where they're coming up with the 15,000. I understand it's a reasonable thing to say a bedroom's worth 15, maybe even 20, but none of this is in their offers according to the comps thus far. So I'm just wondering.
I would have to go back and look at the appraiser, the numbers that they give on that.
And they didn't
most
have an
things
appraisal,
that,
by the
most
way.
things that we're doing are based on square footage period, and the square footage is not changing. The number of bedrooms and what it's permitted for, important to some buyers, it most certainly is. Is it important in resale? It most certainly is. Can you put a monetary number on that? I'm not sure that an appraiser is going to say, I have subject house with 3 bedrooms and I'm using this comp, same square footage, but has 4 bedrooms. So I'm going to plus comp house, 15,000, 10,000, 5. We know a bay of a garage, they'll give you 10,000. You got an additional bay, there's a number for that. Half bath, 5,000. Their numbers, I don't know that there's one for a bedroom.
Really? That's good news.
Yeah, I'm not an appraiser.
Yeah.
Or a lawyer nor an accountant, but I'm not aware of a particular number that can be subscribed for,
Okay. I was just going into the wisdom of, well, they would do an appraiser would do comps for 3-bedroom around there, then they do comps for a 4-bedroom, and those would give you different numbers. That's what one other agent who was bargaining with me tried to tell me. And what I came back to her with, and she said, actually, you have a point there, is the square footage, and saying, I don't see that the 3 versus 4 paints a clear picture, that 3 bedrooms are in this general range and 4 in this. It's all over the place based on a lot of things.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not aware
Well,
of
that's a good,
particular value.
strong point to bring back to
Yeah.
this agent. Okay.
Didn't change the square footage.
Their only thing could be, I guess, right, is if they have 3 children.
They're like
Or-
just a couple.
I think that would be like, a 4th bedroom, did you need it for like a specific purpose? I
It's
think
about
would be their-
value. It's about
Yeah.
value, resale
Yeah.
value and things like that only. Because it will
Yeah.
support 6 heartbeats.
Because you said it had 5 bedrooms, right?
Yeah.
Technically has 5
With
bedrooms.
a,
but
with
it's
an
just
egress
sold
and
as-
closet. Yeah, it's
or
just about the
septic.
septic.
Perks for the 3-bedroom.
Yeah.
Well, it does affect the value. How much does it affect the value? And in this market, I'm not sure that it really would, because what else are they gonna buy?
The thing that I'm just trying to get real clear in my head before I speak to them is what you said about how because we signed the contract that way, they're not in nearly strong of a position to just be like, well, you don't like it, you don't have to take it, and you'll get they could say that if they're willing to give their money back and pay for the inspection, right? So otherwise, they need to understand, I don't think that's in their head right now. It's good for me to get it in my,
Yeah, well, an inspection was what, $450?
About 500.
Is it 500 home inspection, your septic inspection, 200?
they already had the septic, the sellers did done, so that wasn't.
Oh, so the buyers didn't even ask for that. So, I mean, that's the only money, that they're gonna be out. Before you go down that path, if that's what they decide to do, make sure that they haven't spent the due diligence money.
Right.
We just had one of those.
And I don't think they will, but Lisa, just based on what I told you, could you give me, it's always helpful for me to hear an experienced agent, how you would approach that conversation with making your best case for your clients when you're talking to that buyer's agent?
To the agent? Sure, yeah, no, I mean, again, depending on your seller's attitude, I would,
Okay, maybe first, how would you approach it with the?
yeah, I mean, I would
sellers.
present all the facts to the sellers. And then I would see what their attitude is. They could say, Julianne, we really want to make this
They
work.
don't want to lose $1. I know that.
Yeah, well, they could say, we want to keep this deal together, and how can we make this work? Or they can say, we did our best and we don't care. They can take it or leave it. You know, their attitude affects how you're going to approach this. What do they want you to do? Do they want you to come up with a solution that could be a compromise? And if they do, you talk to the buyer's agent and you say, look, sellers really want to make this work for you guys. You know, we're trying really hard. We've been working through this for 2 months, trying to get this, you know, we really want to make this work. Here are the numbers that we think would be fair. You know, we would be willing to, you know, give you the $4,000 for your inconvenience and for you to continue the process. We would be willing to hold back $10,000. Make sure you talk to the attorney first to see if their attorney's willing to do that.
Yeah, because escrow, that money would be, their attorney would hold that in escrow.
Mhm. Yeah, some attorneys won't even do that anymore. And just say, and, you know, we really think that's fair, you know, and, you know, I believe in being collaborative, you know, unless your client is not collaborative, and then you could just go back and say, you know, the seller understands, you know, your concerns, but unfortunately, they feel in this market, you know, that they could put the house back on the market and turn around and sell it again. And so they're really not inclined to do this.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Oh, sure.
To me, a 5,000 is a pretty safe thing to give up, but it could be that it doesn't come through, you don't get a 4-bedroom, you still got a house sold. So if we're holding, you're not holding the 15,000 that you get to keep if it doesn't become 4-bedroom, if I understood it correctly, only to pay for repairs that exceed whatever, is that correct?
I think they were asking for both.
Yeah, they're asking for both, and I agree with you. My first thought is, I think the first is reasonable either way, and I'd like to not do the second, and we'll see. I think my sellers could feel good about that.
Yeah.
Because they'd be given more, as I understand it, either way than if they were to take care of it themselves, or they'd be given a credit of 5,000 back towards that house. The 15 is going to be too much for them, I already know, but I was thinking that way too. I think they're asking for both right now.
So, I mean, there's lots of different options depending on what, you know, your clients want to do. So you present the options to them and let them make that decision.
They really look to me to guide them. That's what I understand.
Yeah, well, you know, they do. Our clients put a lot of pressure on us to tell them what to do. And I advise against that. Because it turn around and well, you told me to do, you know, and I think Ed's answer was really good, you know, in that it doesn't matter what I would do.
And the hard part is present that as a non-drama issue, so you don't get excited about one side or the other. You say, look, here are the two options that I see, and whichever one you choose, I will run by the lawyer to make sure I can do it. And if you choose to do nothing, that's your option as well. I guess that's option number 3. But by saying, I guess being careful not to present drama in that, but you're gonna lose this, you're gonna lose this amount of money, this is gonna happen, make that a big negative. One of the options, they could do this, just know that, you know. Without it being a drama expression, you know.
What were you saying about how to not make it dramatic?
Right,
Because they really.
I just say, look, here's the options as we see it, you know, and here's, you could do this, you could do this, or you could not do anything, and they don't do it, you know, but knowing that they don't do it, this could occur. Without emphasizing any one of them as being better than the other, which is the hard part to do. Because in the back of your mind, you're going, this could fall apart real quick.
Yeah,
you know?
back in my mind.
Yeah.
That's the best thing to do.
Well, and you do, you present the options, you let them make the decision, and then once they tell you what they want, then you say, I'm going to work really hard to make that happen for you.
Okay.
Because you're giving them a lot of yucky options. They want to know that you're in their corner, you know, so no, I'm not telling you what to do, but once you decide, I'm going to work really hard to make sure that, you know, we get that.
Lisa,
Yes.
I know it scares me too. Thank you so much for coming and just spreading all of your knowledge for our agents. Anybody got any questions? Because it's close to 12 o'clock. Anybody else got any other questions for Lisa? Nope. Thank you,
Thanks for
Lisa.
the time. I'm usually around too, so if you're here and you have a question, stick your head in, I'm right over there. I'm happy to help.
Thank you, Lisa.
That was wonderful. So helpful.
It's nice to meet all of you.
Nice to meet you.
You too, thank you.
Good luck with that. Let me know how it turns out.
Okay, I might come back to you. Thank you.
Go either way.
Yeah, it's never easy, that's. for
Thanks, I
sure.
appreciate it.
It's yours. Nice to meet you.
Have you done all your post licensing?
No, I'm just starting my first 300 course.
Who were you using? Like, how did you decide like who to go through?
I can send you a coupon and I'll get $25 and you'll get 10% off if you let me.
Even better.
Superior. Here, I'll do it right now. Someone just told me, I didn't know that we had to take it within a year, so I hopped on it. I guess Keller Williams would like you to do it in a year, and then 18 is like, that's the true, yeah. I'm just sending this agent. So as soon as I found that out, someone was like, yeah, if you do it right now on Memorial Day weekend, there's this sale you could probably get. So I did that. Hopefully you can still get that price. You can at least get 10% off. Let me get to it and then I'll put in the email. And I'm just doing the self-paced one that they have. That's what I want to do. Yeah.
Because some days can be like knockout days.
Yes, and I could tell I started to do the in-person one and it was gonna be rough for me. Okay, what is your email address?
Rebecca,
With a CC?
CCA, yeah.
Mhm.
Dot Werner,
WERNER.
at KW.com.
Oh, look, you got your whole first and last name. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just Julian
Usually it's
S.
just because of the spelling.
Oh, yeah. Werner, not Werner.
So.
Hey, are we going to lunch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I have one more question.
Yes, Rebecca.
Because when I get this,
Mm-hmm. I know,
I
is
get-
it no permission coaching program, add, okay,
so
add.
add,
Yeah, I got that too. So, and you can request
So-
access, but I don't think it does anything. So then just go back to your email, your inbox.
so I sent to Taylor
Yeah.
this morning.
Brian. And it still hadn't come through.
No, I got one.
I think she just hadn't gotten to it yet because I sent it to her and then, yeah, I just replied to like that one. And
Okay.
then it came through for me. So when it does come through, it'll look like, but I'm still having problems with it. Like I don't have the huddle on there.
I know, I was just glad this morning they said this was here because I didn't know.
So like, I have to make sure that I'm not logged into my account, but I'm over on my KW Gmail.
So even if you're in your KW Gmail.
Like
it's
right now I'm in
still-
my personal and then I have to go to my KW, so it sort of switches some things. And then this pops up on the calendar, all the brown stuff.
Okay, I got
It's
you.
a productivity one, but you can see there's still nothing at 8:30. And then I'm trying to get that over to my iCalendar. It's set up, but it's not working
Syncing.
right now, yeah.
Okay.
There's some of the basics.
Well, thank you. for
Yeah, and
sending
maybe
this.
while you're here, you could just, maybe,
I'm
you
just
could,
gonna ask you.
I wonder if Taylor's not here and that's why
She's
Sharon's
not,
And I bet
so-
Sharon might not know. Might be
I'm
Taylor's.
ask her real quick.
So you just started?
Yes. Very new.
Yeah, and I am just started in mid-March. These guys in January,
Yeah, so they were saying they're on.
but they're like,
five-ish.
have a lot of business already.
It's nice to see you in person and meet you
Nice
in
to meet
person.
you and good luck.
Thanks,
I'm
you
sure I'll see you
too.
again.
Yeah, I'll
Maybe,
be
like, there's
soon.
something Friday at 10 too.
There is.
Or it's earlier.
Or-
Yeah,
I think it's 9.
Yeah.
I think it's 9
It's at
to,
9.
don't quote me on that, but I think it's earlier than 10.
No, we won't make it, we have a photo.
Here, let me check for you, Rebecca, since you're like, how will I find out otherwise?
Yeah.
I think it's either 9 or 9:30. Let's see. It's 9:30 to 11.
9:30. 9:30 on Friday.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Come on, sister.
Oh,
We are gonna run over to the restroom area.
Me too.
You too, okay.
yes, and I don't know where you'd like to eat. I don't know the places here that well.
Well,
North Hills area.
asking our daughter, because she works in this building right in the same parking lot over here. And she suggested, she said, she doesn't know how high end or how casual you all wanna go, but, well, we've eaten at Hibachi's before. and-
Oh, that's high end. Yeah, more casual would be good.
Okay.
You haven't had a paycheck all year yet. It's coming though, it's coming.
And she says more casual and, Aladdin is really good.
Oh, it is. Where's that?
That's just right around here.
We'll find, I think it's
I-
north of.
I used to
I don't
eat
know
it
though.
when they were, yeah, okay.
Is
I don't
that
know where
good?
their location is. It's very good. I used to eat there when they were off of Wake Forest Road, like Falls in the News, up across from Millbrook and not come, and I knew they moved, but I don't know where they moved to.
Yeah, I think it's. I think it's.
I think you go up that door over there.
No, I hated to take up all of your time with that. And that's such a good opportunity and the moment. Were you able to follow on that? I would go all the way around.
They said they accepted the highest best offer today at 9 o'clock. So actually, literally it's saying like, what are you willing to do to actually say that you want this property? It's really subject to you guys, how bad you actually want it, not to, give you a number. I can only aid you in that, but I don't make any decisions. Get it for. Okay, so you want to write the offer, you want to put 171 in the purchase price, you want to put that 1710 in each box as far as due diligence and earnest money. And then also, how fast are you looking to close? It's BB, it depends on BB&T, honestly. So you want to say 21 days out? Yeah, to give them enough time to go in there and do appraisal to see how much it actually appraised for. Right. Okay, let me go ahead and get these documents over for you, so you guys can just sign, and I'll go ahead and type over that 2T, and we just go ahead and make it back to back. What I'm saying to you is, like, they don't have to message you back at all they have to do is acknowledge that they received your offer. So in a sense, if you write an offer up, right, and you're sending it to me for my property, and I'm the listing agent, all I have to do is say, thank you for your offer, I received your offer, you know what I'm saying, I'm going to present it to my client. In this case, the seller is the listing agent. So, what I was saying was, they asking for highest and best offer, so everyone else is putting in their highest and best offer. So in a sense, they don't even have to message you back after they confirm that they got your offer. They don't have to say, oh, can you do this? Like, it's their right to counter any offer that they want to. Doesn't mean that they're going to counter your offer. Oh, you're saying like, 1,000 over your best offer? The reason why I say I don't suggest that is because you don't know what their best offer is. They might lie. You know what I'm saying? They could lie. So what I'm saying is that even if they do that, they're not going to give you a number regardless of any other offers, because then they're going to real estate court, real estate jail, whatever, right? They can't do it. So they're not going to do that. He's not going to give you the best offer, even if you can match or go higher. That's what I'm saying. Everything is so anonymous in a sense. Only he knows what's the best offer. So for him to get that information out, I'm pretty sure, he's not even going to do that. Like, hey, this is the best offer. That's why he's saying like, oh, highest and best offer at XYZ time, because you can go, say for example, if this was last week, you could have made an offer, changed your offer 5 different times before he, accept any offer. You could just go ahead and play, but the offer is on the table until you pull it. You can pull it at any point until they say yes to it. All right, let's do the 171. We're gonna mark it out for 21 days. We do 1710 on each box as far as due diligence, earnest money, and we're doing 171 for the offer. Okay, I'm gonna text you if I need anything from you, but I got this. I just need signatures at this point. I got more of these documents.
Hey, it's nice to meet you. Ruby, I'll see you later. she's up there.